This is the Anything But Banker to Broker podcast. We're going to be talking to some of the industry's best and brightest about the unique pathways they took before stepping into broking and how it set them up for success. Thanks for listening. Thanks for joining another episode of the Anything But Banker to Broker podcast. We got Tim Perry joining us today from Azura Financial. Tim's got a very, very diverse, very interesting background before stepping into broking, and he's kind enough to share this time and sort of share his story with us. Tim, thanks for coming on, mate.
No worries. Thank you, Joe.
How's things been?
Yeah, really well. January started off quite busy. I think a couple of weeks ago, it seemed to be a little bit quiet. Obviously, people were probably still on holidays and stuff, but certainly things have been picking up in the last week, which has been good. Very reassuring to see. The last thing that you want is your phone not ringing as a broker. So yeah, it's been good.
That's what I was saying off camera. Like, when we're doing a job like we do, like, there's always this sort of like, when's the next thing coming? Like, is this stuff going to walk through the door? And, it's just sometimes, the market changes very quickly, right? That's the reality of it.
Yeah, extremely. It's definitely like that. It changes extremely quickly. It was just these periods, I remember them vividly, and I always go through them and you forget that you go through them. It's like, well, how come no one's getting in touch? And you'll have 1 or 2 weeks of nothing. And it's like, oh, it's time to pack your bags. We're out of here. It's done. And then suddenly it all floods back in. So it certainly is. It's like the work that you do from the previous 3 months or whatever, it eventually catches up. But sometimes waiting for it to come through can be extremely nerve-wracking.
Mm-hmm. And I can't remember the figures, but the MFAA released some point last year about how many people actually exited the industry. And obviously that number had been made up from loads of things, right? People closing their business, whatever it might be, transitioning. But I can imagine a huge number of people would be those people that haven't been able to weather those periods properly. You know what I mean? Literally have just packed it in, because it does take a lot of resilience to to not just pack up in those situations.
Yeah, I definitely agree. I think like in broking, it's one of those businesses where we're lucky that we've got ongoing trail, right? So you've got a bit of a basis that should it help you weather storms if you've got a few empty months. I do see it's interesting that you mentioned that. I don't know the numbers off the top of my head, but I have noticed there was a lot of posts in some broker groups of people trying to sell their trail books. So it's interesting that you mentioned that. I think it's probably a bit of a shame because it is one of those industries where I remember reading this book. I can't remember what it's called. It was like 3 Feet from Gold or something, and it reminds me a lot of that. It's like you pack your bags, and then like if you just waited another couple of weeks, something probably would have come through.
Mm-hmm.
So yeah, I definitely have noticed like a lot of sales and stuff. It is a tricky industry. There's a lot of brokers. I think it's like 22,000. So there's plenty of competition, not to mention you're competing with the banks. So it can be tricky, but like, yeah, man, it's a great industry with a lot of opportunity for sure.
100%, mate. And you're obviously doing really well in it. But before we get to that, let's go right back to the start. So I want to talk about, I guess, your family background, your upbringing, what mum and dad did back home, and how that sort of laid the foundations that brought us here today.
Yeah. So I grew up in northwestern Sydney in Beecroft. I'm pretty sure it's northwestern Sydney. My dad worked for Sydney Water. So he was there. I remember he got 2 gold watches. So he was there for 40 years as in that role as a public servant. And my mum worked for IBM, which had randomly an office in Kanara Forest, which was in West Pennant Hills. So she had a number of roles at IBM there, and they were both sort of salaried workers. There wasn't really much inclination toward business, but my grandfather had made his money by running cafes and restaurants and chicken and chip shops and that sort of thing in Australia. So I think I took an interest. I remember him sharing stories with me, and it always interested me, the business side, but it wasn't like speaking about money and earning money or running businesses wasn't really something that we spoke much about at home. It was more something that came like later when I was probably in my mid-20s for me.
Yeah, nice. And in terms of sort of going to school, like what were your first jobs and stuff that you did there?
Yeah, I have a bit of a list. As I was saying to you off camera, it's a bit crazy. So, for example, I worked in a nursing home when I was younger, around 14. And then from there, I had a bit of experience working in a cafe that didn't last long. It was a local one that ended up shutting down. Did my time packing shelves overnight at Woolies as well. And then a job that a friend of mine at high school got me as well was doing a roadwork thing where we used to put the loops in the ground that would trigger traffic lights to change colors when cars drove over them. And what was weird about that, it was probably on paper, it would be the worst job because I would go to uni and then we'd start at like 8 or 9 o'clock at night, work till 3 or 4 in the morning, get a couple of hours sleep, and then show up to uni again covered in tar. So it was a tricky job, but I actually ended up doing that for 5 years, and I think it was because the guys that I used to work with, we used to have a really good time, working with those crews overnight. So there was that, and then a few odd jobs here and there. But that was sort of like the early experience before I got anything that was actually, like, career-ish.
Going back to obviously that what you was doing at 14 when you was working in the nursing homes, how do you think that sort of helped with your emotional development, I guess sort of your outlook on the world doing something like that at such a young age?
Think, I think for me, like, at that age, I probably didn't really understand what it all meant at the time. Like, in hindsight, doing that kind of role, like, the place that I worked at was a nursing home for people with dementia, and I think being exposed to that sort of environment, having the responsibility of preparing their food and then interacting with the people that lived in that home, I think it's sort of like, without you even knowing consciously, gets you used to communicating with so many different types of people. So obviously, one, the elderly and coming to them in a sort of caring capacity, but then two, also like co-workers and people giving you instructions that you have to follow. So I think there was like a bit of an early exposure to what having a job would feel like, which is sort of serving a client and then also, managing what your manager or your boss wants you to do. So I think, yeah, I think overall it was a good experience. I enjoyed it. And it was fairly low touch. It was like just a couple hours between 4 to 6 p.m. each afternoon type of thing.
I mean, but you're 14, right? So you'll take anything at that point.
Anything I could yeah, anything I could get. Yeah, exactly.
What does a 14-year-old Tim Perry spend his money on when he's in school?
Man, honestly, like I remember I used to be a bit of a squirrel. Like I wasn't really a big spender. I was lucky that the things that interested me when I was a kid, my mum and dad would invest in for me. So at that age, I was sort of just keeping my money in a savings account. I had one of those early CBA Dolomite accounts, so I just used to like fill it up every now and then, and if something popped up, I would buy it, but I think, like, at that age, I was more or less interested in PlayStation games and hanging out in the afternoons with some of my friends, so it was a very expensive lifestyle.
Exactly. No, I
Yeah,
love that, mate. And so going forward to obviously the overnight job you was doing, so
yeah,
that's basically civil construction is what you were doing, right?
yeah,
Civil. Were you studying at this point to be a teacher? Is that a pathway that you'd already sort of, and I'm jumping a little bit ahead here, but I think it all makes sense, right? Is
yeah.
that something that you'd already identified as a profession you wanted to do?
Yeah, I was, that's right. So I did that job during uni. So I was studying at Sydney Uni. At the time, it was a combined degree with education and arts. So yeah, I was focusing on history and English, and then overnight doing that job. It was a bit of a crazy timetable.
Strange, but in a good way. I can't
Yeah.
imagine there was many other people in Sydney or even in Australia doing that job whilst also studying to be a teacher at the same time, like, very
No, it
unique.
wasn't. A lot of the other guys that I was working with, my friend who got me the job was working, he was at uni, and then I think he ended up working at his family's business for a while instead. And then the other boys were working full time at this place, so they'd come in the mornings and into the actual factory to help manufacture the things that we're installing. And some of the other guys were getting ready to join, like, either the defense force or the navy. So it was pretty broad, the guys that were there. But yeah, most of there was not really any other people that were studying at uni. And I think as well for me it was on two very sides of Sydney because obviously attending uni in the city and then the role was in Hornsby Heights, which is quite far away. So it was a lot of commuting.
Sounds good, man. But it obviously, again, what do you reckon that did for your outlook and the way you sort of see the world today? Because it instills a lot of hard work into you, right? Having to fight against going to uni and studying whilst also doing a bloody overnight shift.
Yeah, for sure. And again, it's not something I consciously recognized at the time, but I think it was like I have commitments on both ends. I have the commitment for the night work, and then I've got the commitment that I got to go to university and learn these things for my career.
Mhm.
So I think I feel like that's carried through to my work now, where I definitely feel a deep sense of commitment to, like, the people that I work with and for. So in making sure that things get done. So I think that there was that instilled, and the types of people that you work with when you do those sorts of jobs, like, it's a very broad spectrum. Like, it can be quite rough. Like, the types of people can be quite rough. Even the traffic that passes through the sites, like, back then I remember people would scream, they'd throw things at the traffic controllers, they'd honk horns, drive through the sites dangerously. I remember one guy, this was unbelievable. There was a guy who must have been in his 60s, and he was working the lollipop, and someone had taken his, so they were frustrated. We were on King George's Road, which was notoriously busy, and they took his lollipop off him, and this guy was 60, mind you, and the guy hit him with the sign and then took the truck keys out of his pocket and threw it into a bush. So we got, like, an old guy on the site who's just been abused and assaulted, and then they've even taken his vehicle's keys and thrown it out of sight, and, like, it wasn't that uncommon. Other things like those giant mills that saw the top layers of the road off, like, we've seen them go over gas mains and, like, it's set on fire and melted the mills, and they're like $1 million piece of equipment. So, like, as a younger guy, like, seeing this whole broad spectrum of society, it definitely opens, because you're quite protected when you grow up in the suburbs, and you don't really recognize that people can be like this, to be honest. So it was very eye-opening, which I think it's good, to be exposed to these sorts of things.
I bet you couldn't wait to be a teacher at this point.
That was Being a teacher was a long journey. Like, that was a 5-year degree. So it was a long path to teaching, actually, as well. But yeah, I was looking forward to it very much.
So talk to me. So I asked you before, so just to confirm, before you even started the degree, you wanted to be on the pathway to being a teacher.
I was one of those kids who didn't know what they wanted to do at all. All I knew, like, to be honest with you, I had no inclination to become a teacher. No one in my family was one. All I knew in high school was that I really loved history as a subject. It I actually just didn't realize that there was other jobs where you could put history to use. I think, as I said to you previously as well, like, my next door neighbor growing up was a archaeologist, and it never dawned on me that that was a career path that I could opt for. And it was actually my mum who suggested, I think at some point when she was younger, she wanted to be a teacher, and she suggested to me, because she knew me, that I always wanted to have a family and this and that, and she was the one who suggested, "Hey, if you're a teacher, you'll get great holidays, time to spend with the kids. You can earn really well, and it's a good role that you can have that meshes well with your lifestyle." And it wasn't actually till I became a teacher and realized how difficult and demanding the job is that it doesn't mesh well at all with that sort of lifestyle in reality.
Think probably the same as like these three things tying together, right? These two things, your overnight work in civil and your
Yeah.
probably late night work that you have to do as a teacher, marking, prepping, right? Like that's all helped you in your pathway to become a broker because no brokers work in 9 to 5 if they really give a shit or they're any good. You're having to work sometimes in the late nights, probably very similar to what you was doing as a teacher, right?
Yeah, absolutely. So as a teacher, I mean, the misconception is that you've got these holidays off. But I would find that very early in my career as a teacher, I found that to be a misconception, because what would happen is, you'd be surrounded by so many people in a school each day that you're copying, like, a lot of sickness and viruses and diseases, and your body would fend it off until the end of the term. The term ends, and then suddenly you're riddled with illness for the first half of the holidays, and then the second half you're getting over being sick. So it was one of those ones where it was a bit of a cycle, and it was hard work. You're right. Back then there was a lot of marking. I have my suspicions that the AI buddies could be assisting a lot with marking these days. There certainly was a lot of that, a lot of preparation. And then, as someone who was, like, new to industry, you sort of feel the burden of trying to do everything manually and do the best job you can. So there was a lot of prep, and there were some late nights for sure.
Let's go back to the start, right? So I want to know about literally, I guess that finishing uni, becoming a teacher day one. What was that like?
Day one as a teacher. So when I left uni, I actually started teaching casually, and it was it was tricky because back then, like, when you were working as a casual, the way that you would get notified that you've got a day of work is someone would give you a call, like, or at least the schools I worked at, between 4:30 and 5:30 in the morning. So I used to actually have these nightmares that my phone was ringing at, like, 2:30 or 3 in the morning, and I'd pre-wake up, "Oh, I've missed a call." And then I'd panic and I wouldn't be able to sleep. So I was finding myself like perpetually exhausted from this cycle of casually teaching. And that didn't really break until I was offered, until I started working at a school where absenteeism from the teachers was so high that the person who managed casuals just said to me, "Hey, Tim, come in every day and we'll find something for you to do." And then I could turn off my alarm and then it became a lot easier. And then from there, I started taking on longer blocks of work and then getting, doing a couple of years at a time. And so it was a bit of a progression to that. But certainly at the start, I was doing some casual work because I started actually teaching before I completely finished uni. So that's how it sort of all meshed up together.
Yeah, I don't know what you call it over here, but usually would do like in the UK, you would do like a supply teacher's role. So you come in, it's like a placement effectively, right? That's what you were
Yeah.
doing.
Yeah. Yeah, exactly. So I remember one of the first ones was like I did a block teaching mostly senior history at St. Ives High School, and that lasted for a couple of terms. And then the head teacher of the history faculty recommended me to another school, and then I ended up at that school for a couple of years, and it sort of just went like that.
Yes, man. Um, and how old were you? So you started doing that straight out of uni, right? So would you have been early 20s, 22, 23?
Yeah, I'd say 22, 23.
Yeah.
Yeah. So it was funny because I obviously was so young, and then some of the kids that I was teaching were only like 5 years younger than me. So, and I remember I actually did a bit of work at my cousin's school, and he was 18 at the time at Pennant Hills High, and I was only like early 20s. So it was, trying to fight and like get a bit of respect and authority and control in the classroom. It wasn't working very well.
Yeah, it's funny, mate. Like when I lived in Sydney, my two housemates that I lived with were a couple, both teachers. He's from the UK, moved to Australia. That's a whole different story. But he was teaching as a PE teacher in a primary school, and his partner, she was actually working as a teacher in a high school, and she would have been 21, 22 at the time, and she was teaching girls that were like literally 3, 4 years younger than her.
Yeah,
Uh,
it's
and I
hard.
was like, I don't know how you could do it because I mean, you are technically their peers at the end of the day.
Yeah,
You know what I
yeah,
mean?
yeah. Mate, it was hard. It was hard, and I remember I did a bit at a school called Epping Boys, which is fairly local to where I still live, and there were so many big characters in that school, and they would make me laugh so much in the classroom because it was just hilarious. Like, you can imagine, what all boys' schools are like. It was really tricky, but honestly, it was a lot of fun as well, so I can't complain.
Do I mean, do these people like because they obviously there's very similar age, like, are these people that have now popped up in your life as you've got older? Does it kind of work like that or naturally or
It's so funny that you say that because at Azura, a good friend of mine who I actually taught at Epping Boys popped up and got a job at Azura and became a broker. And then one of my guy that I went to school with, he was a year younger than me, now continues to work at Azura. So, it's funny. Another guy who just got hired to Azura, I used to tutor his brother. So it's one of those things. I think every teacher knows it makes you happy and it's also horrible because I'll be walking down the street and you'll hear like a car drive past and then Mr. Perry like yelling out the side like yelling out the side window. But so it's both good and bad. The other day I went to Yochi, picking my toppings, and I look up and the girl who's working behind the counter, I remember teaching her when she was in year 8. Um, and it's embarrassing for both of us because it's like, what do
yeah,
you say? But it's nice. It's nice to see, it's like looking at your own kid, how you see that people grow and they change, and yeah, it's nice, man. It's been a good experience.
percent. And I think like from my experience, it was good having younger teachers in the school as well.
Yeah.
Even though the dynamic in the UK is a bit different, like we leave high school at 16, whereas you
Yeah,
guys
yeah.
stay on till 18. But it was always nice to have younger teachers because you felt like they get it a little bit more. You know what I mean?
Yeah. Yeah. I agree with you. I think it's good to have a mix for sure because the younger ones, you got the energy, they got the passion, they're trying to make a lot of you go in with big ideas. but then the old ones are also good because it's the discipline, it's the routine, it's knowing what to expect, which I remember in my school, and I really appreciated the teachers who had, like, authority and presence and discipline. It seemed to work well for me.
Yeah, I can remember in school, like my some of the classes I was in was a little bit rowdy, and you know, the teacher would leave, and then they'd bring one of like the big dogs, one of the big guns back, and everyone would just
Yeah,
go,
yeah,
you know what I
yeah,
mean? Wouldn't even have
yeah,
to say anything. Everyone would just be
yeah,
like, "Yeah, shit, okay,
yeah.
we know what this means."
Yeah, exactly. Yeah, or you're about to get whooped by the teacher. Yeah,
Yeah,
I don't know, yeah.
yeah. And then, so you just obviously touched on a good mate of yours who was I think he was the year below, a year younger than you in school. Did you effectively transition into brokering because he reached out and said, "Hey, mate, you know, here's what I'm doing. You know, is it something you'd be interested in?" Is that kind of how it started?
No, that was purely by chance that he ended up at Azura. My transition into brokering, do you want me to cover that off now?
Let's do it, mate. Yeah, yeah, yeah.
Yeah, it's actually such a random story. Like, when I was working in one of my school positions, I was at a school in Ryde, and me and one of the other teachers there, I just started, and I was trying to, like, get involved in the school and be part of the community, and I put my hand up to help assist with the gym club, which ran in the morning, and the students who attended, it was like a combination of kids that were interested in, like, obviously lifting weights and getting stronger and getting into bodybuilding. And then there was also, like, some of the naughty kids who it was like, well, let's try and wear them out before their day starts so they're not too bad for their teachers. And the other teacher that I ran that course with, like, him and I ended up becoming really good friends. And we used to, he had a great sense of humor. We used to tease each other a lot. And anyway, it was one of those things where as we became closer, he started opening up to me about his personal life, and I realized, wow, this guy's like, he's not just a teacher. He's got his own business on the side. He's done really well for himself. He knows a lot about business and economics, and just had, like, a really fast, bright mind. And it got to a point where these gym sessions, like, him and I would train together, and I'd be talking, like, between sets, I'm asking him all this stuff about finance. And as I said to you, like, I didn't really talk too much about money when I was growing up. It wasn't really like, I wasn't really business minded at all. But seeing what this guy had achieved and being around him, it kind of rubbed off on me a bit. And one day he said to me, he's like, mate, like, he goes, you have a good personality to do something in business. And I'd never considered it. And I said to him, I'm like, what do you suggest? And he was actually the one who suggested mortgage broking. He said, "Low startup cost, you know, it's more of a sales role. You can earn a lot, like, it can have a high profit margin." And I was like, "Okay." And then he said, like, "You know, I'll look at it with you. We'll go to the meetings, blah, 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 blah." And he was the one who, steered me toward Aussie Home Loans, because he's like, "Mate, like, if you go in under a franchise model, they will teach you what to do. Like, you'll have a process." And for someone who had no background in this, like, I feel like that was really valuable. And the Aussie model was that you actually sit down in a classroom for 6 weeks and they train you on everything on how to become a broker. So it was that chance meeting, running that club, that led me into mortgage broking and that transition across.
Yeah, that's lovely, mate. So was he a bit older than you? Is that sort of the dynamic there, or did he just have his hands in all these different pies as well as being a teacher?
No, yeah, he was a bit older. I think he must be like 15-ish, 14 or 15 years older than me. And it was one of those, it was probably like the first male role model that I had in my life, obviously outside of my own father, that I sort of looked up to and was, like, impressed, and I was actually really proud to call him a friend as well, because he was a really nice guy, very family oriented, and he was the type of teacher where all the parents loved him. And a lot of the teachers, but the kids loved him as well. He was like the kind of guy that we've been describing. He was, one, young enough to get the kids, but two, also old enough to have, like, that natural authority and that gravity around him. So I certainly looked up to him a lot, for sure. And, like, even today, he's actually I say this, he's actually a client of mine now. I say that, but it sounds weird because I still learn from him, but he is on my books.
Different strokes in it, you know what I mean? You do
Yeah,
different things, but it's good, mate. Like it's yeah, it's a good story. So with
yeah.
Aussie, how long was you there for? And was you self-employed from day one effectively with Aussie?
Yeah, I don't know. I can't remember the exact dates. I know it's on my LinkedIn, but I don't look at my LinkedIn, so I'm not sure. But I'm gonna guess that it was roughly around a year. And I went straight in as a mobile broker. So and then from there's the it's a little bit back and forth, but from there I actually ended up at Shaw Financial. So and we can get to this. I'm not sure how you want to sort of get there, but basically when I was at Aussie, I used to write a lot of LinkedIn posts, and it was like my way of trying to do some digital marketing back then. I think this was 2016 from memory. It was, yeah, like a mix between 2015 and 2016 that this all started happening. So I did these LinkedIn posts, and then one of the guys who worked at Shaw, his name's Tom Hawley. I'm pretty sure that he found me on LinkedIn and invited me to a meeting in North Sydney, told me about Shaw. And man, to be honest, I was like, this does not sound that good because at Aussie, they give you, at Aussie, they give you all the leads. Well, that's the whole, and you sort of just sit at your desk and you get leads. But mate, honestly, like as we all know, internet and advertising based leads aren't the strongest. So you're going through a lot before you get anything. And when I spoke to Tom, who was obviously coming from Shaw, he was like, nah, mate, we do it differently. Like we get our own leads. We're not going to give you any leads, but we'll teach you how to get them from real estate agents and partnerships and that sort of thing. So yeah, as I said, I was at Aussie for a few months. I did my training. I feel like I knew how to do mortgage broking. I'm pretty sure the Shaw guys had like the mentality, and it's smart. They're like, where can we recruit brokers from that are already trained? So they're obviously looking at Aussie was known for producing like trained brokers. And then, they're obviously looking at ex bankers and that sort of thing. So I'm pretty sure that's how that all came to pass.
It makes sense. I'd be
Yeah.
lying to you if I said that I don't have a LinkedIn recruiter project that's purely just called Aussie Home Loans, and I don't mind saying that because they're not someone I want to work with. You know,
Yeah.
it's a good model. It makes sense. You train guys up for 2 years. You
Yeah.
get really good experience, really good. Yeah, man. Going back to what you said there as well, like from conversations I have, I feel like there is two different types of people. Like I don't know what side of the brain it is, but it's like somebody needs to hear that they're going to get leads, and somebody needs to hear that they're going to get told how to go and find them. You know what I mean? Like
Absolutely.
I can understand like from the meeting if they're saying like, "No, we're not going to give you any leads. You're going to have to go and find them." You might be like, "Oh, that doesn't sound better than what I'm doing now."
Yeah.
But once you quickly get over that and you realize, well, the leads that you're getting online dry up at some point. But if you're creating this sustainable network, right, where they're organically coming to you, take care of people. That stuff lasts forever.
Mate, honestly, like when I was, as I said to you, as a teacher, I had no clue. Like when you're used to just showing up, you don't even pick your class. Like, hey, these are the 5 classes you're teaching this year. The curriculum is in dot points for you to go through. There's no guesswork. You get your paycheck on a fortnightly cycle. It's very structured. And at least with Aussie, it was like someone was telling you this is how you write a loan. The phone rings, you pick it up quickly because response time is key. This is what you say. This is how you capture the information. Like it was very structured. So at least that eased me in a little bit. And then, going like transitioning to finding your own leads and having a model where it's based purely on your own efforts, it's a bit of a shock to the system. And I'm sure we'll come to it later, but to be honest, like when we talk about why I left the industry, it was because it was too difficult for me and I wasn't ready yet. Like my mind was not ready for it.
Was this when you say when you left the industry, you left broken for a little bit? Is that right?
Yeah. So
Okay.
yeah, do you want me to
Yeah,
go
let's
over that
talk
now?
about it. Yeah, yeah, yeah. Let's talk about it.
Yeah. So like to be candid, when I was at Aussie, like I obviously built up a bit of a database of clients, and when I left, like I lost that database. I had to redo all of my accreditations, and it's quite a timely process. It's difficult once you invest your time and effort into something to walk away from it. The whole cost fallacy thing, it's difficult. But I did that with Shaw thinking that it would lead me into something bigger. Um, And then what ended up happening is Tom and Ben Hawley, who started Azura, where I now work, they left Shaw not that long after I started there because they wanted to do their own thing. Like, their business was growing incredibly fast, and you can imagine, like, unless you own your own shop, you can end up leaving a lot of money on the table. They left, and then I decided to stay at Shaw, but the structure that I'd come into Shaw with was gone. And Shaw was good, extremely well run. Methodologies, processes, still a fantastic business. It's killing it. But it was a big shakeup for me. And I was reliant on Tom a lot. And I wanted to learn off him. And, him and I were friends at that time. So when the team sort of dissipated, I lost my way a little bit. And I wasn't sure what to do because I was still in that mindset where I needed someone to tell me what to do each day. Hey, here's an open for inspection list. Call through it and see if you can get any business. Or you need to work on this client file. Like, it was very structured still. I knew what to do and it was working. But when that all sort of dissipated, I just, yeah, I was still in that frame of mind where I think I needed a bit of a manager. So it was only a few months after that. And then I left Shaw as well and ended up joining corporate because I needed to get paid.
See, it's funny because I assume naturally you would have gone over with those guys. I thought that's what the progression would have been, right? But they
Yeah.
left to start Azora. Obviously, they couldn't have scaled it up to what they did today that fast and bring loads of people over because they were going,
Yeah.
not ground zero, but they were starting again, right? When you
I
said you
had
went to corporate, what did you end up doing?
Yeah, so just to round out the Azure point, like, I did have the opportunity to go with those guys, but I think the reason why I didn't go is because I didn't wanna lose my book again, which belonged to Shaw. So, it was one of those things where I'm gonna have to change because 'cause they're with AFG, and then I was gonna have to change to Connective. And, like, to change aggregators twice in a year is a lot, and to be honest with you, I didn't have the financial resources to start again. I was pretty much broke. Not broke, but I wasn't making that much money from broking at that point in time. So that was when I hopped into corporate, and one of my colleagues that I was with at Shaw actually got me a job at Reckon, which is an accounting software company. And then I was there for years in a national training role. It's what you would call today a customer success role, which is essentially training the end users on how to use the software. So was a it was a big change for me, but most importantly at that time, like, I was getting married, I was moving out of home, and I had to get stable work. So I made the change based on that.
Makes sense, right? And there's some elements of everything you've done previously in there, albeit like probably not something you was 100% passionate about.
Mate, I had to be honest with you, zero passion.
Hmm.
Zero passion. I do not do that well sitting in front of a computer all day. It doesn't really I feel like I'm like, kinda secretly, when I was in high school, I wanted to do a trade. Like, I wanted to be an electrician, and that was what I imagined myself doing. But, it was not to be, but the sort of corporate life, to be honest with you, it was every day it was a grind. Like, I was getting up, it didn't feel right in my belly, like, putting on clothing that I didn't like wearing, hopping on a train, walking to by the time I got to the office, man, honestly, like, just between you and me, like, after half an hour had passed, I was so bored, I was, like, looking for people to go out and get coffees with, and I was getting my colleagues in trouble because I'd keep them out. I'm like, "Oh, hey, let's go to the bakery. Let's go and get this. Let's go and then let's go to the gym for now." I was doing anything to be to not be in the office. I was still getting my job done, but it was very much like people wanted bums on seats.
Bear in mind, this guy was a teacher previously in a previous life, right?
Yeah. Yeah. I that was exactly yeah. I was if it's funny you say that because that's exactly right. It's like that's what you demand of everyone else, but then you can't do it yourself. But for
Yeah,
my
but mate,
personality, like, to round off that point, like, for my personality type, standing up and talking because it uses a lot of energy, it suited me well.
yeah. Hence why I've got a stand-up desk now as well. And
Yeah.
it's the stand-up desk that will not allow me to sit down. It's literally built that I can only stand up.
Yeah, nice.
But yeah, I think it's one of them, mate. Like your your energy's drained if you're not doing something you're passionate about. And
Yeah.
it's very clear from the way that you are that you needed to be doing something for yourself, no matter what it is.
Yeah.
You said it yourself, right? You wanted to be a Sparky. You probably would have been happy. You would have been happy at being a Sparky or being a broker for yourself or doing anything because you're doing it for yourself. And it's your sort of, you make the rules, you kind of,
Absolutely. I've always loved, tinkering on things with my hands. And even, even to this day, like like just small things, like even just sitting there building a Lego kit with my kid, like it's obviously a very easy thing, but it's like there's something satisfying about like you like being able to do something yourself. But the good thing about these training roles that I had, like whether it was customer success or national training at Reckon and then at Next Gen later, there was a lot of travel. And I really enjoyed the time that I got to spend on the road with my colleagues. And it was difficult traveling a lot and having a young kid at the time, but I did enjoy it. So there were definitely some aspects of it that were good. And, all this experience, it does come to a head because being part of a corporation and having rules that you need to follow and eventually being able to calm yourself down and sit down and just plow through work, even though it might not be that exciting, it is ultimately required in your role as a broker because you do have, at the end of the day, like you got to get stuff done. Do you know what I mean? So it did ultimately, it was good in the end.
at this point as well, right? Obviously, leaving Aussie, your book stays there.
Yeah.
That's a fact. With Shaw, I don't know if that was the case there, but if it wasn't, had it started to run off by this point, was the book just non-existent?
Nah, yeah, they anything that I had, they kept. Yeah.
And from what you're telling me, it wasn't a great amount at this point, right? But that was your first crack at the whip, which is okay.
First crack at the whip, as I said, and I'm very like I'm extremely honest with myself about this, and because when I guess we'll get to this, but when I got back into broking, it made me extremely nervous because to be honest with you, Joe, like I was not making enough money that was commensurate with the time and also the stress of the role. So it did not make sense to me. And you mentioned earlier a lot of people leave the industry. I can definitely see why. Like if I look at, I spent a year or whatever it was at Aussie and then a little under a year or so at Shaw, that is not enough time to get a broking business off the ground unless, you're one of these guys now that comes into the industry where they've already built, say, a following on social media or something like that, and they're now monetizing their following. Back then that was not how these models worked. You really needed support. And I was living at home. So I had it easy, but it was still difficult. So
Yeah, you like did the real hustle of it, I think, like you're saying there, a lot of the people that are coming in have the social media backing, which is great. And I'm a huge advocate of people actually going out there and trying to build that out and build that into their personal brand as well.
yeah.
Because, we were talking, you said it before, right? Both of us are in sales roles, but we'd be stupid to think that we can sell in the same way that we used to, right? It's about trust. It's about people actually going, I already know that this guy can solve my problems before, or girl, guy or girl or whoever can
Yeah.
solve these problems before I even speak to them, right? And I know they've solved my problems because I've seen them sharing this video about this experience or,
Yeah.
whatever it might be.
Absolutely, mate. The landscape now is, as you said, it's extremely difficult. And those people who have, like, I've had an inside view of this from coaches that I've worked with, and also like the guys at Azura, the ones who are killing it. They're really you can. It's actually crazy how much business you can get from social media.
Yeah.
Yeah,
Yeah. Yeah. There's lots of things you'd like to do if you invented a time machine, mate. And I guarantee the first one of them would be go back and start fucking
yeah,
building that
man.
following early on.
I had like it's crazy. I had no idea at the time that all those LinkedIn posts that I was right. I had no idea that people were actually even reading them. It was, I was only writing them because it was like, I'm new to industry and I'd write a post about like an offset account or what LMI is or what your loan to value ratio is. And I was more doing it because when I was a teacher, like one of the ways that I got really good at essay writing and being able to help my kids write essays, for example, was by writing them myself. So it was like if I write an article about lenders mortgage insurance, I'm now going to know what lenders mortgage insurance is. And you sort of clear your thoughts when you write, like you're trying to say something succinctly. So then it was when I'd have a conversation with a client, like I'd written about this and now I can speak about it clearly. But I had no idea that people were looking at it. Had I known that I would end up at Shaw based off those articles and that now I'd be a broker at Azura based off those articles, mate, like you just got, I had no idea.
Yeah, it's one of them, like, going back to what you said, I remember when I was revising at uni, I'd always write everything for the revision and the stuff that I needed to learn for the exams on paper.
Yeah,
I would do all of my essays and stuff on the computer, right? But when I was having to learn and retain, I'd always write it down because, like you said there, it's like you're zoning out, you're zoning in, and just honing on doing one thing.
yeah. Yeah, absolutely. And even today, man, like, how much stuff do we all consume? I've got like this little book that I keep on my desk, and if someone says something on a YouTube or a podcast that I find interesting, I write it down and then I actually do read through it regularly. It's like sort of, putting pen to paper. It helps a lot with bringing these things into reality.
Correct. So if let's say I do, even now, if I do face to face or I do an online brief or like a discovery meeting,
Yeah.
my AI note taker joins because I don't want to sit there typing. But I also sit there with my notebook here, got my ING notebook, and I
Yep.
sit there
Repping.
and I'm repping them, mate. Yeah, and I sit there and I scribe it down,
Yeah.
and I just word drop, whatever the word might be, like this, and this, because I know that those things are going to stick in my brain, even though
Yeah.
they're getting captured as well.
Yeah, for sure. For sure.
So 2 years in corporate. Let's move back into broking, right? So it was roughly 2 years, I think you did across Next Gen, and I can't remember the name of the other business. Yeah, is that right? Yeah. So 2 years, and then how did the pull to broking or pull back to broking start? Sorry.
Mate, it was, so after Next Gen, I actually went back and did what was what I found to be amazing for me, because my son was obviously young now, so I didn't wanna travel as much anymore. To be honest with you, and just between you and me, like, I probably might have gotten performance reviewed out of Next Gen. So, as I said, like, and just being blunt, I was not a good employee, and, I was doing my job, but not at a level where I was really inspiring anyone else. So what ended up happening was I left Next Gen and I went back to doing full-time casual teaching, and then I also opened a tuition business, which filled extremely fast because most tutors, to be honest, are university students or they're not teachers. So I was a teacher offering tuition, and I would like do casual teaching during the day. I'd prep all of my tuition lessons and then I'd tutor sort of like from 4 to 7 or 8 p.m. at night. And then I was working on weekends as well. And I ended up getting like a little shop in Castle Hill. It was great. And then what happened was and this transitions into how I got back into broking. So I was doing that, and then I was like, "Oh, well, I'm making some money now. Things are stable." I was married, and I wanted to buy a place to live in with my wife at the time and my kid. And I reached out to Max Harris, who is still a broker at Azura, who's doing unbelievable numbers now. This guy is a lot younger than me. He's an extremely good broker. He was also working for Tom at the time. And I remember, I felt like I thought, this might not actually be reality, but because I was a bit older and because I had the experience at Aussie and stuff, like I thought I was helping train him up a little bit, getting ready to like get on the phones and that sort of thing. And now he knows a lot more than me and trains me. Anyway, I remember calling him and I was like, "Hey man, can you do a mortgage for me?" And after we'd sorted the mortgage, I'm like, "Oh, how's business going anyway?" You know, expecting it to sort of just be like the average that a new broker would do. I don't want to share his numbers, but like it was crazy. I think at the time it was like 25 or 26, crazy numbers. And I thought to myself, damn, like we were working together not that long ago. And now this is where you are and this is where I am. Maybe I should have a crack at this. And anyway, mate, like to be open at that, like a little, like not that long afterwards, I ended up getting divorced. And it was during that period of living on my own, trying to figure out how to look after my kid and stuff that I said, you know what? I can't work full time and tutor and look after my son because we had an arrangement where he would be with me 50% of the time. So it's like, how am I gonna look after him? How am I gonna pick him up, from daycare and then and look after he was only 2.5 at the time, and then do his food, put him to bed, do his routines when I need to be in front of my students teaching them. So I thought, "You know what? I'm gonna have to give mortgage broking a crack again." I had no other options. I had no other options.
It sounds like it. Yeah, it sounds like it. It's literally like you had to do something that give you some form of flexibility, right? And like,
Yeah,
you know, what do you know best at this
yeah.
point? broke it.
Yeah, exactly. So I had a bit of a transition period where I stopped going to schools and working as a casual teacher, and I started winding down my tuition business. So I got some of my teacher friends to take over as many of the students as I could so that they'd be looked after. And then I started trying to find loans again. And mate, like I was not finding any loans. And I've obviously come off the back of being a failed mortgage broker. And then like these first 6 months, I reckon I did like 2 deals. So back then at Azura, there wasn't many like Azura's. I don't even know how many people work at Azura now. It's massive, but back then there must have been like 5 of us or 7, and we'd go around in a circle, and everyone would say their numbers, and every time my response, donut, 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 because it's a zero. So I had all these donut months. I'm like, I'm not making any money again. I'm trying to look after my kid. I'm living on my own in this place. I got all these rent expenses, blah, 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 blah. So it was definitely difficult. And then, man, like, a couple of serendipitous chance encounters happened. And then suddenly it all changes. Unbelievable. I don't know if you want to get to that yet, or we'll come back to it later. But yeah, it's certainly from one month to the next, just luck, man. Lady luck landed on my shoulder, and that was it.
Look, like, what is it, that book, the manifesting book, like, you've put the work in to deserve this. Like, I think that's what it is. It's like the good stuff that you've put out in the universe. Like, at the end of the day, being a teacher is a very honorable job. You know what I mean? Like,
Yeah.
you're taking on a lot of mental load and stress to make sure the next generation of people are equipped and have knowledge, you know what I mean, and are good people and are going out into the world with a positive outlook, right?
Yeah.
You're putting a lot of good karma out in the world doing that.
Yeah.
I can't say the same for getting performance managed out of your last business, but it is what it is.
Yeah. Look,
But you
man,
know what I'm saying?
I did my best.
Mate, it happens. We're all
Yeah.
human at the end of the day, right?
Yeah.
But what
Yeah.
I'm saying is, like, you obviously put enough out there in the universe that, you deserved it. You deserved a good run. Um, Look, it might have presented itself as luck, but it's really the work that you've done. You know what I mean?
Yeah, I hear ya. I definitely don't think that over my life that I haven't there's a lot of things that I've done that have taken a lot of effort. And, teaching is one of those jobs where a lot of teachers don't openly say this, but and I was young, mind you, but there's like you have a perpetual underlying sickness. You're never There was no day where I woke up and felt 100% healthy. It wasn't until I actually became a mortgage broker and got some financial stability that my health was the best that it had been. Like, Joe, I've been lifting influenced by my father, I've been lifting weights since I was 15, and it wasn't really until I was in my early 30s that my body actually reflected all of that effort, because I used to carry like fat around the belly, which I could not get rid of. And to this day, I believe like the stress, the anxiety, and the constant tension and sickness from being around so many kids and staff, like it really affects a lot of teachers' health. And I don't think that they openly talk about it. I've said it to a lot of people. I remember catching viruses or diseases or whatever you call them, for example, that were not common in adults. Like I remember catching rotavirus, and when I got the rotavirus, I went to the GP. She gave me antibiotics, which I learned later was the worst thing you can do. And I was like at the point where I needed a drip to keep me alive because I was so dehydrated from vomiting and going to the toilet and losing fluids. And you never think it, but these are the kinds of things that you're exposed to in a classroom. I agree. That was a very long-winded way of saying that. Yeah, I did. Looking back on it, I think I did put in the work and the effort and the reps, and I gave um, a lot of my energy even to the construction job and those sorts of things. So, you know, I do agree with what you said.
100%, mate. Like you said, it's an honorable thing. You know what I mean? Why do people go to teaching later in life? Like they
Yeah,
happen because they maybe feel unfulfilled from what they've done, and they want to
yeah,
feel like they've not given back enough, right? So, mate,
yeah.
like, kudos to you for doing that. I
No, I
couldn't do
appreciate
it.
that.
Although I would love to have done it. I don't think I could do it. It's one of those things, you know what I mean?
I do, I do. I think you, in reality, like it would be difficult to imagine yourself doing it based on your trajectory, but you certainly have the effort and the drive to do it. So I think it's like like anyone, we can often surprise ourselves. A lot of people doubt themselves, as I did a lot with mortgage broking. Like, Joe, honestly, when I look at where I am today with my business, and my business is by far nowhere near, what the top guys are doing. But I cannot believe that the guy who went to uni, studied teaching, like did all the odd jobs, got reviewed out of companies and this and that. I cannot believe how blessed and fortunate the position is that I've landed in now. I'm sitting here in my apartment with my son in the next room, and like even to just be able to look after him on a day to day basis it honestly is a blessing.
Yes, but it's why I think it's one of the most beautiful jobs that you can do. You know what I mean? And it's no wonder why so many people are coming in and coming in and coming into the industry. Net
Yeah,
numbers higher than what people are leaving, right? Because
yeah,
it's like you going back to what you said about carrying that weight around me or and that stress, right? Like that's what people are kind of, and it is a stressful job, broken. It's very similar to what I do. It's stressful. You know what I mean? Sometimes you plan to do something and you can't do it because you've got to, you know, the work does come first sometimes, but the
yeah.
freedom that it gives you outside of doing that is
Mate, you're absolutely right. I mean, like and my son and my friends and are all used to it now. I'm very open with people. Like, if I go and visit friends and stuff, sometimes you've got to take calls, sometimes you've got to do things, or like let staff know what we need to do or whatever. And it is it can be disheartening to say, oh hey, like I know I said that I was gonna like play a game with you or we're gonna walk the dog or whatever. And now we've got to do something else for a little moment. It is disheartening, but honestly, it's a very small trade-off for what you get in return because, like, with one of those things, like one of the things that I've learned is like with children, and obviously you're a father as well,
mhm.
is you don't necessarily need to spend all day with them, but it's important that you can spend some focused time with them. Um, and having a role like being a mortgage broker certainly allows you, if you're purposeful with how you set yourself up, to have enough focused time that you can build a really deep relationship with people, which I personally love.
Yeah, you're right there. You are right because even though you're putting more hours in the day than someone doing a 9 to 5, you're
Yeah,
selecting when those hours exist. You know what I
yeah,
mean? And once you get into a good flow of it, you're like, well, right, this is a very urgent submission. This
yeah,
submission I know is going to get picked up by the lender and be treated as a priority tomorrow. So if I
yeah,
submit it at 6 or if I submit it at 12 o'clock at night, still getting the same service there, still getting the same SLA from the lender side, right? So you
yeah.
can, once you get in that flow, you can sort of figure stuff out.
You're right. Absolutely.
Right, so donut months, donut months, donut months,
Yeah,
and then bang. And like, mate, it happened to me. I started off to a cracker with this business, and then I think there was this bias of like, maybe okay, he's done 6 months, he's done 3 months, maybe let's just see if it lasts the full year. You know what I
yeah.
mean? And I can understand it, right, with the way I work and guarantee periods and all that shit. But you just have to go, nah, do you know what? I believe that what I'm doing is valuable. And I believe that at some point, if I just push through this donut, I'm gonna come out on the other side. That's why
Absolutely.
donuts have holes in them, you know what I mean? Because you can go
Yeah,
through them.
yeah. Or you can fall through them into the never-ending abyss.
Yeah, true, true, true. True,
Yeah,
true. I think they're called
yeah,
black holes, but yeah.
yeah. The black hole. Yeah, yeah.
So yeah, what changed? Like, you said there was a bit of luck, but what did that look like in practice?
Mate, it was a crazy story. So my mum's best friend was selling her home in West Pennant Hills, and she was using a. My mum had referred her best friend to a really big real estate agent around Beecroft, very well known guy. He's got a really cracking business, and she said to me, she's like, "I'll go and support her. Just go to the auction and show up and support her." And I went and I took my boy with me. And I was speaking to the agent, and I knew him because he'd also sold my parents' house a few years back. We got to talking. We found out just through, because Ollie, my son, was standing next to me, and he was asking, and we found out our kids were born on the same day, same hospital, almost the same time. So we built like a little like mini connection. And then he knew, the agent knew back when I was at uh, Aussie or Shore, I can't remember, that I was a mortgage broker. So at the time that he sold my mum's house, I was a mortgage broker. He didn't know, he never sees this, but he didn't know that I left the industry. Now, when I've gone to this auction, I'm fresh in. I'm doing donuts every month. I'm staring at the black hole, and then we find out this thing about our kids, and then he's like, "Mate, like we've just ended our relationship with our existing finance guy. What are you doing these days?" I'm like, "Oh, I'm still a broker." Little white lie. Nothing's changed.
You weren't lying because you are still a broker,
Yeah,
technically.
yeah, I was. I was still a broker. I was just like, there was a big gap, but I'm still a
Yeah.
broker.
Yeah, it's like when did the context of the word still start? Maybe not when we
Exactly.
first spoke, but
Yeah,
still, yeah.
yeah. Put it this way, I had my accreditations and I could submit loans. I just was not submitting a loan.
Yeah.
So anyway, mate, that happened, and then we set up a meeting, and he became my referral partner. Now, this is how crazy it was. I went from 0 leads, relying on the off ones that were coming into Azura to be allocated to me. Now, at this time, Azura was not what it was today at all. So there was no leads coming in. It was very rare. And I was a bit of a charity case, so they give me the odd one that came in. And anyway, mate, so it's gone from no leads. And then I remember in the first month, these guys sent me like 30 leads. Some days they would send 8. And I'm sitting there just calling through them. Um, and then one of the first ones that I landed was like a 1.4 mil purchase for a couple that had already exchanged and they were already approved with a bank. And I got them approved with the same bank with a slightly lower rate. They wanted to be with that bank, and I was like, "Mate, like, let me be your mortgage broker. You'll get amazing service. You can call me anytime. Can you call your bank anytime? Nah, but you can call me anytime." And then, anyway, just fortuitously, it's settled. Obviously, a 1.4 mil loan's pretty big, so some decent comms came in, enough to tide me over for a while. And man, I'm this is no exaggeration. There has not been a single donut since that day.
Nice.
To
Nice.
this day, it's been, it's coming up on 5 years from nothing to never missing a month. To me, okay, some months were smaller than others, but when I look at my commission statements now and I see no gaps, it's like, thank you that there's something coming in. And it was that one chance meeting, man. One chance meeting, and it was because my mum basically forced me to attend an auction.
Yeah. It's crazy, man. It's crazy. It's crazy. And and that's the thing, but it speaks a lot to these people who are leaving the industry, right? Like,
Yeah,
activity breeds activity. Had
yeah,
you had just sat at home and
yeah,
moaned about the donuts and
yeah,
kicked up a fuss, you wouldn't have given yourself that opportunity.
yeah. Mate, you're absolutely right. And there's we spoke before about the social media stuff, but to this day, the surest way to get business is to be out in the world, meeting people face to face, not going in there with the intentions of trying to extract every commission dollar you can from someone, but just building genuine connections with them. Like a lot of the agents that I work with today, I'm actually genuinely friends with. And I've seen a lot of them grow, like a lot of them that were doing buyer side work now have their own agencies and stuff. And they've grown. And I've just been fortunate enough to be on the receiving end of their growth as they've been on the receiving end of mine as well. So mate, it's honestly, and I think I'll mention one other thing, as I got older, something also changed in me a little bit too. I honestly believe that being a father and having the extra responsibility of now looking after this little life, changed something in me where I was more happy to sit at my desk and look at a phone number, knowing this person doesn't want to speak to me and still dial it anyway. And then, man, the frustrations of getting MIRs and working with lenders and all the stakeholders that are involved in settling a mortgage. There was just something in me which was like, nah, this is going through today. Do not put my file down. I'm going to call the client. I'm going to get an updated payslip and I'm going to have it to your inbox in 15 minutes. And I was just getting stuff done as quickly as I can. and building that momentum, I just didn't feel like it never stopped since then. So it was, something had also changed in me as well, like just by naturally becoming older.
Happens, mate. Like I was a backpacker. I would have been referred to as a backpacker 4 years ago, 5 years ago. You know what I mean? Like since becoming a I mean, it didn't just stop when I became a dad. There was obviously a
Yeah,
transition period there, but like 100%, you know what I mean? It just gives you that thing. It's like, no, there's somebody else that's more important than you that needs feeding. You can go without food, you can go with donuts, but this little life
yeah,
to be the best version of itself needs you. And another point you touched on there as well, like I'll often get people telling me about these, you talk about top brokers. People say they're so kind with their time. They give me so much time. They were so helpful with stuff. And it's like, yeah, and that's why they're top brokers
yeah,
because they've also been very kind with that time with people that they couldn't help there and then. And I think that's what goes amiss in the industry is that "Oh, it's not a deal. All right, well," you know what I mean? Nah,
yeah,
spend a bit more time, put 20
yeah,
minutes, 30 minutes in with that person.
yeah.
Don't just switch off the commission breath because, it's not a deal there, and then help that person out. Give them a plan, help them, and then they'll come back to you.
Mate, you're absolutely right. Like, it was just last night that I had an existing client call me. She basically called me to tell me that she'd been tricked into signing and refinancing with another broker. So I knew I was obviously going to lose the deal, and she was so far down this path with this other broker and buyer's agent combination that I knew the deal was gone. I ended up spending an hour on the phone with her while I was cooking dinner because she hadn't been educated right about how the refinance process would take place. She was feeling really unsure. So I was doing the other broker's work. I'm like losing time when I was cooking dinner for the dog and my son, but knowing exactly what you said, that this is still a person who needs help. And I'm not thinking this at the time, but you're right. Like at some point down the future, when she does need help again, she's gonna come back. So it is one of you're right. It's just about being good to people, but then also, in addition to that, laying it with the things which are smart in business and looking at like ways to get yourself out there so that you can meet as many or potentially new clients as possible too. So it's everything for sure.
Yeah, I think there's a big thing that gets pushed down from sort of like the gurus, let's just call them, right? And it's like, now you have to be smart with your time. You have to do this with your time. Mate, we got loads of time left. You know
Yeah.
what I mean? Like, you don't have to be smart with your time. You can be kind with it.
Yes.
Like,
Yes.
as long as
The
shit will get
generosity,
done.
mate. Absolutely. Sorry to cut you off there.
You
But
know,
you're right. The generosity always comes back somehow. Somehow. And
like I said,
it might not even be the form it might not even be in the form of money or anything, but it's as you said before, it's like, what frequency do you operate? What energy do you wanna put out there?
100%, man. 100%. I always like to sort of get to the end. And even if people don't have an answer, it's more just to get the wheels spinning and get them thinking, like, what's the plan for the next year? Like, what's the plan for your like business under the business going forward?
Yeah, I would like I always back and forth about this. I have a plan where I would like to increase my volume, but I wanna do it. And these things go at odds. I want to do it in a way where I can expand the business a little bit and help someone else start to grow something as well. So I want to expand my business, but do it in a. I feel like in mortgage broking, there's a balance that you can strike between being really profitable and making a great living for yourself, but without having so much deal flow that it sort of overwhelms you. And now, like obviously, as we spoke about before, like being a father to a young boy who has a lot of energy, I'm trying to manage being there for him and really enjoying getting to spend this time with him, but not letting the business slip. And I feel like if it's not growing, it's going to slip a little bit. So I'm like carefully working my volume up to like that cross section between expansion and profit, but also somewhat protecting my time. And I've been able to do that a little bit so far by hiring. And I want to continue to do that now by trying to grow a little bit using the social media platforms and continuing to hire on the back end of that as well. So
I think
it's always a little bit of give and take because you bring more work on, you become, and I'm like, I'm a little bit scared to overhire and then try and fill the pipeline, even though I've seen that be extremely successful with the guys at Azura. Like, I watch them grow their teams, and then I see massive amounts of business come in off the back of that. I'm probably a little bit more conservative, though.
Yeah, it's fair, mate. I like, and I've seen it work a lot with businesses that I work with. It's all in the mindset. Someone interviewed with a business last week, and they've got the capital to bring this girl into the business, and she'd had a lot, but they're being conservative and they don't want to. Right, and I understand that. But I'll also work with businesses that are like, they treat it like, if I bring another child into the world,
Yeah,
am I going to let that child go without food? God,
yeah,
no. You're gonna work
yeah,
your ass off and make sure they're fed right. So, like, there's two different sides to it, and I think the reality, they both have their pros and cons. One of them's definitely riskier, but I think that's the beauty of it as a role, as an industry, is you can dial up and dial down whenever you need to suit where things are at in your life. You know what I mean? As long as you're
yeah.
maintaining your book and looking after your clients, and it's one of them as well, because it's such a collaborative industry as well. Like, if you are inundated with leads, look at how many people you've got in Azora that can take them off you and help you out. You know what I mean? And help the
You're
client
absolutely
out.
right, and I do that. Like, for example, like, I can write an SMSF loan. I could do it if I wanted to. It's not difficult, but there's, some of the guys there do them all day, every day. So it's like, well, this will free up my time. We'll still split the commission, and the client will get a better outcome because they're going to deal with someone who knows the rates, they know the policy, they know the documents, they know everything. So it's, you can create those win-win-win type scenarios very easily. And the guys at Azure have been extremely generous with me as well. Like, for example, if they're going on holidays, I work through the Christmas period for like the first 3 or 4 years. So if they would go on holidays and then a client needed help, I'd put my hand up and say, hey, like, send it to me, I'll look after them. And then again, we'll do the commission split.
Yeah,
So
mate. And it's like, and because of somebody in my industry's moved to be a lot more collaborative. It didn't used to be, because there'd be all these big businesses and they'd have their own divisions and blah blah blah. But like, now, let's say I speak to a business and they're like, "We like you, Joe. We need to get a marketing manager." I'm not going to be like, "Oh yeah, I'll go and get this marketing manager so I can keep 100% of the commission."
mm,
I've got trusted people that I work with that I can be like, "Hey mate, let's do a split on this. This is your niche. This is your speciality. This is your passion. You're going to get a better outcome for somebody by
yeah.
going and doing this and partnering with me, rather than just, me trying to fill it just because I want 100%."
Yeah, mate, absolutely. I'm the same as you in that respect.
Mate, thank you for sharing everything with me. We got a nice amount of time in here. If it
Yeah,
goes past the hour, it means that we've had a good chat. So I like that. Yeah, mate. Look, good on you for sticking at it as well. I think that's a lesson learned for a lot of people that might listen to this, that either aren't currently working in broking or are working in broking and are feeling the pressure. You just have to stick it out, and you have to put yourself out there and um, be active, because activity breeds activity. You know what I mean? Success breeds
absolutely.
success.
Yeah, absolutely. Yeah, thanks, Joe. Really appreciate it, man. It was really good to do this because it's not very often you even get the opportunity to sort of see your own narrative. So I really enjoyed it as well.
Yeah, it's one of them. I think I seen your Azora posted a very, very short clip
Yeah.
of your background, and I was like,
Yeah, the
teacher.
profiles.
I was like,
Yeah,
whoa, that's like I told you, there's three guests. I need nurse,
yeah,
teacher, and I've got a nurse coming on in the next episode. I was just like, yeah, it'd be good to share your story, mate, in here, because you know there are a lot of people sat in teaching jobs and sat doing very, unique jobs that are interested in this
yeah,
industry.
absolutely.
Yeah. All right. Well, take it easy, mate. Good to chat.
Thanks, Joe.
Cheers, Tim. Bye.
Bye.